This is WorkSpan TV, and I'm Rose Stanley.
And I'm Kerry Chou.
Today we're going to be talking about the basics of recognition programs. Let's get right to it. Kerry, I understand that you've had some experience with implementation of recognition programs. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
We were wanting to have a worldwide recognition program installed. Now we had, and this was a multinational organization, we had various pockets of the organization that had recognition programs, but one of the objectives that we had as an organization was, number one, to try to get a better handle on what types of recognition were being awarded, costs, and we were really trying to have develop more of a uniform compensation philosophy delivery. So these were some of the objectives that we had. We first went and did some interviews. We interviewed the local HR staff. We interviewed some employees. One of the key things that you have to remember in a recognition program is that recognition that might be valuable to employees in one part of the world may be not valuable, or in some cases even offensive to employees in other parts of the world. So one of the things that you have to do is to understand your audience, to understand what employees in various regions of the world recognize and will see as valuable. We then went and talked to leaders and talked about budgeting issues. We determined, how much did we want to spend on this program. Then we looked at the various types of recognition models that were out there. We looked at a few alternatives. And we ended up with one that had, 3 or 4 different levels. The purpose of this program really wasn't to get anybody rich, so to speak, but really to provide that sort of spot recognition, to give someone that pat on the back, and back it up with some nominal to reasonably valuable amounts of cash. We costed it all out, keeping in mind that employees in different parts of the world were paid quite different rates of pay, and so we wanted to make sure that we were keeping it consistent. We presented the cost and the program to the executive staff, got their approval, and then we spent a significant amount of time working on a communication plan and a rollout to make sure that employees and managers understood the purposes of the program, how it was to work administratively, and then we rolled it out. Over a 2 or 3 year period, I think we met the objectives that we had set out. We got everybody on the same page in terms of the plan. We had similar levels, and so someone that was a star level in this part of the world was also a star level in that part of the world, and so we had common nomenclature and terms, so people understood that. One of the other advantages that we had was we were able to really then track the expenditures that we were giving out. That in some cases was cash, in some cases it was nominal items like movie tickets or dinner tickets or something like that, but we were able to track and get a much better handle on the expenditures that we had. Every program has its challenges. Certainly it wasn't perfect, but we felt pretty good that the implementation and the design was well thought out, and we felt that we achieved the objectives that we had established.
Well, that's a really big endeavor that you guys put in place. And I know that as you start to think about putting in recognition programs, you start to think about some short-term and some long-term goals. And I'm sure, if I heard correctly, you did have those goals in mind. So one of the first things that you want to think about are, what are the goals, short-term and long-term? Could you talk a little bit about what some of the short-term goals were versus the long-term goals?
That is a great point to reiterate. Before you start putting anything on paper or typing into the computer, you really need to sit back, talk to your key executives, talk to some employees. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? In this particular case, I think what we were really trying to do was to number one, get everybody sort of together, thinking as one company. So certainly an element of improving teamwork came into it. We also wanted to get a better handle on what we were spending in our recognition. And so being able to put in a worldwide program allowed us to do that. In terms of the short-term goals that we had, I think there was a sense among the executive staff and people that we talked to that people were feeling a little bit trodden down. They did not have the sense of morale that we wanted employees to have. I think people were feeling a little overworked. And so one of our short-term goals was simply to start providing some recognition to our employees so that on a consistent worldwide basis, so they would start feeling valued, that they would know that people were recognizing their work. We also took the opportunity to do some training for our managers, as we felt that our manager corps had an opportunity to remember and to be cognizant of the fact that management isn't all about just maintaining budgets or making sure that widgets are getting completed, but it's also ensuring that you're patting the backs of your employees, that you're letting them know that you appreciate their work, that you're keeping them motivated and engaged. So those were some of a few of the short-term objectives that we had.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought up the piece about the manager and the trainee, because I know that not a lot of organizations actually invest a lot of training to managers for recognition programs, but I think you make a point when you're saying that how important it is for those managers to understand how the program works and to be able to give that recognition and why it's being given so that it helps them and their productivity of their employees.